Welcome again to Stroke Warrior Radio, where we highlight the voices, stories, and resources that fuel recovery. I'm your host, Ralph Cortez, a stroke survivor, advocate, and proud warrior. Today, we're diving into one of the most important areas of recovery and rehabilitation, whether it be stroke or TBI, which is speech language pathology and the ways it transforms life after brain injuries. Joining me is someone who has made it her mission to stand in the gap for survivors. Kerri is a speech language pathologist and founder of the Brown Brain Healing Collective. Kerri, I'm so glad you're here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ralph, for having me back. I'm excited to talk more today.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited of doing these series with you. They're so informative.
Yeah,
So, anyway, for our listeners who may be meeting you for the first time, can you introduce yourself and maybe give us a little bit about your background?
absolutely. So, yeah, I'm a speech language pathologist and a certified brain injury specialist. I've been working with brain injury and neuro inpatient rehab for over 7 years now. I, after grad school, initially started at an inpatient rehab in Iowa, and now I'm out in Colorado, again, working inpatient rehab for 4 days a week and then doing the Brain Healing Collective on the side. So a lot of what I'm seeing is severe traumatic brain injuries day to day or very significant strokes. So keeps me on my toes for sure.
I'll bet, I'll bet. You mentioned certified brain injury. I'm going to interject here.
Mhm.
There is a huge difference between a speech language pathologist and one certified in brain injury, isn't there?
Yes, I think we get additional education as far as obtaining our CBIS. So there's a whole training, a certification testing that you have to go through. And it's really, I think, important for someone to have their CBIS when it comes to stroke recovery because we need that additional piece as far as neuro and medical. I mean, there's so much speech therapists do as far as working with pediatrics or geriatric, all the whole gamut, but when it comes to working neuro rehab or with stroke rehabilitation, the CBIS I think has been really huge to have and kind of keep up with the latest in neuro. So
I like that because I also found that, for example, neurophysical therapy is completely different from physical therapy.
right, yes, yeah, it's
Yeah,
a whole different approach. So I think that's like something you may not realize until you're kind of in it and you're like, oh, this person actually doesn't have like a medical background, or maybe they're working with a totally different population. So it's just something to keep in mind, especially for stroke warriors.
exactly. Um, over we talked about this earlier, um, and before we get into our real questions, I didn't understand or get to um, a speech therapist till I was 7 years in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Nobody ever told me, I didn't have slurring speech or that kind of stuff. I did for a little while, it went away. So nobody thought of speech therapy, but I've chewed only on the right side of my face. I was left side affected.
Okay.
I always had problems coughing, those kind of things. Tell us a little bit more about the areas a speech therapist really covers.
Yeah. So a medical speech therapist is going to target all things swallowing, so dysphagia disorders, and I can get into that. Communication, cognition, language, and motor speech stuff like the dysarthria or the slurring. So dysphagia really is something people maybe look over because you don't really know about it until you're in it, that your brain can disrupt after having an impact to your brain. It can disrupt your swallowing ability. So we do a lot of work with swallowing disorders, making sure we're eating and drinking safely and preventing any aspiration. There's a whole bunch of tools, strategies, exercises for that, and then a lot of assessment that goes into that to make sure no one is silently aspirating, which just means if they're aspirating and maybe don't cough like we do, like our body's alarm system is just to cough if something's going down the wrong tube. That's not the case for everyone after a brain injury or a stroke. So dysphagia is a very important one because it keeps us safe. So that's a huge part of our initial assessment is looking at their swallowing abilities. And then we can get into like the language piece as well. And I'm not sure if you had any aphasia after your stroke, but
No.
language aphasia is a language disorder affecting how you either express your output or receptively understand. So it can affect your reading, your writing, auditory comprehension, expressive language as far as getting the right words out and the ones you want when you want them. So I will work a lot with dysphagia and aphasia, especially in the inpatient realm. Um, and then also just how we can support it if we need to use augmentative and alternative communication, an AAC device, or something to help bridge that gap until their language skills improve. So, yes, I think the swallowing one is one people may forget about until you're really in it and you're like, oh, yeah, that's kind of important. So,
Yeah, yeah, it was so strange that I found out that it was stroke related. I mean, what is maybe some of the things that a new survivor or their care partner may notice it more better than the cognitive issues with stroke survivor? What are some of the things people should be looking out for?
as far as swallowing,
Yes.
yeah, I would say like the coughing or maybe even like runny nose or watery eyes. Those are three symptoms of aspiration. Again, sometimes it's silent. So a lot of times I'm depending on lung sounds to make sure they're clear and nothing's getting into them without us knowing, because unfortunately we don't have X-ray vision. So really just monitoring that overt signs of aspiration, but also being aware of like if they're feeling ill, if lung signs are clear or clouded. So those are a few things to look out for sure.
I can speak to a lot of frustration after my stroke. I didn't. I faced a lot of cognitive issues. I
Mhm.
still have some. Obviously, while I'm asking questions, doing all these um, it was frustrating and isolating. What I learned is the role of a speech pathologist does more than speech, and it kind of, I'm going to say, rebuilds identity and hope. That's why I really wanted to focus on with you and our shows. So,
Yeah. Yeah, cognition is one that is also kind of sneaky, and will is really long term. When you think of speech therapy, cognitive therapy, it's a little bit more, I would say it's less tangible than maybe the physical therapy or walking again or regaining your balance. That seems very objective and tangible in a lot of people's eyes. And then we come to cognition, which is pretty abstract. So, talking skills like processing speed, attention, memory, and executive function. And a lot of times in the inpatient setting, we're really just targeting the bottom part of that pyramid, like the attention and memory piece or processing speed. And then what tends to happen is people will have more awareness once they get home and notice more of the executive dysfunction, the memory stuff once they're back in their home environment, which can be frustrating because in a hospital we're so structured and it's like a very safe bubble, at least where I work. And so a lot of these things we can't simulate until someone's in their home environment again. And then they're like, oh crap, that's what she was talking about with the memory or the attention or planning or self monitoring. So there's cognition is like such a wide range, but really focusing and thinking of it as a pyramid, like I said, of like the attention at the bottom being the foundation, memory in the middle, and executive functioning. You really have to use those building blocks to get up to those higher level skills. So let's say your attention is really poor after a brain injury. I can't attend to something like this conversation for more than a minute. If I'm not attending, then I'm not going to store that memory, decode it, store that memory, and then retrieve it when I need it in the moment. So that's how those cognitive skills build on each other. We have to improve attention to improve memory and therefore improve executive function.
and in the speech area, I know I've heard this in the physical therapy area, that it's never as good as it gets, is it?
For as far as the speech production,
Yeah, I mean
yes.
the relearning and the forward momentum and all of that. I mean, in speech therapy, I've had people say, "Well, that's the best you're going to get.
Yeah,
You're going to be on a cane the rest of your life."
Right.
Baloney.
That's the thing. It's why I say it's the long game when it comes to cognition and language. And I think you make so much progress in an inpatient setting, and then people are going to tell you you may plateau. I don't necessarily believe in that when it comes to cognition, because there's so many compensatory strategies we can use. There's so many skills and salience and neuroplasticity that we can kind of lean on to continue to make little gains, even if it's years post. So,
I agree. I agree. Let's talk about one of the biggest issues, survivors, and I choose to call them, I think it's a choice to be a stroke survivor or a stroke warrior.
mhm,
So I'm going to say warriors.
love that.
What happens when they go home, Kerri? What gaps do you see in the early post-stroke care?
Yeah, what I notice a lot is people get discharged from inpatient rehab, and then maybe their case manager sets them up with outpatient or home health or something of that sort, maybe even telehealth. But that also is temporary. So that may be like a month or 3 months, whatever insurance is kind of allowing. What I notice is the gap that's after that is then what? All of my services have ended, and now I'm just expected to do life again, where everything, your reality is totally different. So that is a huge gap. And even just the transition from inpatient rehab or a hospital to home, it's quite a jump. A lot of people might need 24/7 supervision to start. So it really impacts the whole family system. And I don't think you really realize that until you're in it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, that that is that need is exactly what led you to your next project, which is um, the Brain Healing Collective. Tell me about that.
Exactly. Yeah. So I kept noticing this gap come up with previous patients of mine, and kind of the isolation feeling. There's still room for improvement as far as their cognitive skills, and the lack of connection or community, going back into your home environment and not being able to connect with your old friends, or you're not working, maybe it's hard to connect with family. So that really resonated with me because I felt like it kept coming up with previous patients, and there's no other resources out there. And so after the therapy ends, that's really where I wanted to plug in the Brain Healing Collective. So the Brain Healing Collective is to help with those things like community and connection, mindset, movement, the cognitive skills. And that's the mission of the whole. And then we also have the Reconnect program, which is coming up in September. And it's really to fill that gap in care for stroke and brain injury survivors.
Neat, neat. Tell us more about Reconnect. And I hear you've added some new team members as well.
Yes, so exciting. So the Reconnect program is an 8-week program, and it's built to target those pillars of mindfulness, movement, and connection. So we split it up. It's personalized across the members. And what we do is spend a couple weeks, maybe 1 to 2 weeks, just on goal setting alone to make sure it's very individualized, personalized, again, salient. And we'll have one-on-one check-ins weekly with me. And then, like you mentioned, I have um, two individuals that are working with me. Andrew Davey, who's a counselor who actually is a brain aneurysm survivor. And then Kristen Bowman, also a brain injury survivor. And she's going to be our peer mentor. So you have all three of us kind of structuring your week and checking in on you, one-on-one sessions with everyone. Then you have a group session with the whole. And it comes with a workbook. So it's very individualized. The workbook has an outline. But again, I think what's interesting about brain injury and recovery is there's no roadmap. This isn't necessarily a roadmap, but it is something to help guide you along the way and give you a little bit of structure. A lot of it's building new habits, new daily routines, and just being aware of what a realistic goal is and what we can do to get there. And so it's kind of, I like it in that accountability sense of we have our goals, we're tracking our goals, we're checking in, and we're pivoting along the way. So,
Sorry for the pause.
mhm,
Anyway, I love it. I love the fact that that sounds very holistic to me. I mean,
that's
it's
the goal.
like, I always it took me a long time to realize that I had to have my therapist all talk to each other. You
Hmm.
know, and once I became captain of my own team, I was able to say, well, this is what my therapist said to my PCP, and my PCP would respond to my therapist. So
Yes.
I love the approach that it's all combined, especially peer to peer. That's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
I know.
And
It is very unique, I would say. Kristen is happy to volunteer her time and she's really passionate about this. And I think it's a great way for people to understand they're not alone. And then that consistency is huge too, of knowing you can show up weekly and who's going to be there. And that won't end just after the 8 weeks. So that we could carry on with a membership of just having your community that you go through the program with. So it is always there. And I think the consistency is something that is lacking in the survivor community.
absolutely, absolutely. And it's also lacking that not many people understand. I mean, you mentioned executive function before. It took me so long to know what that was. You
Yes.
know, um, I love the fact that you're doing the individualized too. You know, because physical therapy or OT, they're going to follow a protocol, especially an inpatient.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you get out, I think more survivors or warriors need to ask the dumb questions. The ones that are never asked, those are the dumb questions to me. Those are the ones you have to ask in order for the therapist to get to know you. And that's, you do that in your work. So I appreciate that a lot. Um, what would you tell a new survivor or a new warrior that's starting your program as far as becoming a part of it, not just listening, being involved in your own recovery? What would you tell somebody?
Yeah, I think what is so unique about this program is it's driven by the participant. They show up because they're goal driven and they want to improve and see change. So they are driving the whole program. They are the captain of their own team. And then we're here to support it. And I think with having the peer mentor, that's huge. A counselor for the emotional side, which is also such, I think, something that's looked over once you get home.
Oh
And then
my God, yes.
for. So, yeah. So I think it's like more of a holistic approach, maybe including some more mindfulness, meditation, movement that feels good for your body. And just looking within versus like a PT or a therapist just telling you to do reps. So it's very
Yeah,
personalized for sure.
yeah. And I found, again, back to the neurophysical therapy, if you find a neurophysical therapy, they're going to have the same approach as you do. What do you want to do? What's your goals? I mean, the one therapist I had, um, in my first year, I was a contractor. She
Mm-hmm.
asked me what I couldn't do anymore that I'd like to try. I said, well, I have to climb ladders and to do my work.
Mm-hmm.
She brought a ladder into work,
Amazing.
into therapy. So, I mean,
Yeah.
that kind of approach, I hope every survivor listening
Mm-hmm.
realizes that you have to ask for that stuff.
Yes. It has to be meaningful to you.
Yes.
Mhm.
And we're often embarrassed, aren't we, asking those questions
Yeah.
because I mean, how do you get people through that?
I think really just rapport building, like you said, active listening and understanding the person as a whole is everything before you start throwing them into exercises or whatever routine we're doing. Yeah, I always try to spend a good amount of time just really understanding the person, understanding their goals, and doing concrete goal setting, I think is huge because I think that's motivating and you get more buy-in if we're all on the same page of what we want to achieve. And that way, objectively, you can look back and say, okay, we need to pivot a little bit. And what does that look like? So, yeah.
And that we as survivors and care partners should be looking for therapists like that. I
Mhm.
mean, the ones that check off the list on the protocol, it doesn't work.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's again, this is driven by the participant. So it's up to them. And I'm there to support it one way or another, whatever route we choose. So,
And I like the mental health aspect because, as you said, I had some very dark moments myself, twice,
Mhm.
that I don't wish to go back to.
Yeah.
So, and they don't tell you that that's going to happen, you know. Nobody says, they say, okay, physical therapy, occupation. To me, there's 12 therapies that include spiritual, mental health, emotional, whatever. Those
Yeah.
are some of the things that are neglected to be communicated to us.
Yes. Agreed.
So,
A lot of people are sent home without a psychologist or a counselor and someone who really understands brain injury. So that's why I'm really excited to have Andrew on board because he's lived it, he understands it, and then went on to be a counselor after it. So I think it's going to be very relatable. And again, no one expects the emotional piece, and your whole world is turned upside down, and we're expected to just carry on. And I
yeah,
don't believe that's the best case scenario. So that's why I'm really excited to have Andrew support these folks throughout the program.
yeah, I'm excited for you. That sounds fantastic.
Mhm.
Well, every time, what, well, actually, let me ask you, what gives you hope in your work?
What gives me hope is seeing the progress and how meaningful it is to whoever I'm working with. So just returning to life. And again, it's looking different, but that hope and that change that they're seeing and working through it, that gives me hope and motivation to continue to do what I'm doing.
Have you found too that that hope builds as you become repetitive and consistent in your recovery exercises, I'll say?
Yeah, exactly. I think the repetitiveness, the consistency, the routine that we build together, that's how we're going to see progress. So I really focus a lot on daily habits, journaling, mindfulness. Um, and again, it's a lot on the participant to look within, but that's how where we see change is with the consistency, the repetitions, just really sticking with something to give it a full shot.
Um, I'm always, I guess I'm in a lot of my therapies, I'm at the point where maybe, and I'm asking because I want to know how you handle this. If I may say, I don't want to do this exercise, it just doesn't work for me.
Mhm.
Is that reasonable for a patient to say?
Yeah, totally. And there's probably a lot of times someone doesn't want to do it, right? Um,
Yeah.
and that's okay. We can pivot. If it is, if we're seeing gains and it's something we need to power through with, we can talk about it. But if it's not something they're bought into, it's not really gonna make sense. So I think really like listening to the patient and knowing what their needs are is huge. Because again, I've if I don't want to do something, if I'm not bought into it, why would I see change?
And medical therapy gives you the opportunity too, doesn't it, to have alternatives to whatever they can't or won't do, right?
Exactly. Yes. And there's always ways to accommodate and to compensate. So just really getting creative and critically thinking and being able to pivot and be like, okay, that's not working out so great. Let's try something else. And how can we modify it?
And how do you, I guess patients probably need to learn that they can say that, right?
Yes.
Because
Yes.
I mean, like I said, put me on a bike and walk away. I mean, I should have said somewhere along the line in a year, I was doing that. I should have said, hey, where's, I don't see any progress. What
Mm-hmm.
else can we do?
Yeah. Exactly. And I don't think maybe people feel empowered or know that they can advocate for themselves. So I think learning that self advocacy is everything when running your program. Being able to communicate your needs to your therapist, your goals to your therapist, that's huge. So, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
definitely important.
I found out I could fire my therapist too if they didn't listen.
Yes, you can. You absolutely can fire them.
Yeah, and find a new one. I went so far as to visit their facilities before I decided on a new therapist.
Yeah.
I'd call an interview or meet them and interview them more or less and visit
I
the facility.
I
So
think
that
I
was
said this
kind of
last.
cool for me and it helped a lot.
It is. You want to get the vibe of the place, of the person. I kind of said this last time, but it's almost like dating. You want to make sure it's a good fit before we carry on. So you have to be all on the same page for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So for anyone listening who feels this program might be a fit, how can they get involved?
Yeah, so you can message me on Instagram. It's brain_healing_collective, or shoot me an email via Kerri.Potthoff@brainhealingcollective.com.
And that's KERRI
Yep. Dot
dot P.
POTTHOFF@brainhealingcollective.com.
I
Yeah,
keep
if you
putting one
know
T.
what's that?
I keep putting one T.
Yeah, you got it. Two T's,
Yeah,
two F's.
it's two T's. Okay.
Yep, yep. And if maybe you know of anyone that may benefit from the program, it doesn't hurt to find out more. So I'm happy to book a call. You can shoot me an email, book a free call, and we can learn a little bit more and see if it's a good fit for whoever it is you have in mind. So
And you can work with people outside of Colorado as well, right?
yes, yeah. So I'm seeing people from all over, which is kind of the goal. I really want to reach people, even if they're in a remote community with a little less resources. And I'm really targeting it more from like a coaching realm, because it is so holistic and a little bit different. So that I can reach people from all over at that.
So, are you open to any of our therapists or doctors listening to contact you as well?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think, like I said, I love the approach of like having the counselor, the peer mentor, any professionals that think they could offer something to the program. And if you're interested, feel free to shoot me an email or message me. I'm open to collaborating because this is a new thing and I want it to make sense for everyone who's partaking. So yeah, any professionals that have any input, I am all ears.
And it sounds to me there's a little crossover between us SLP and a OT. I didn't realize that either, that an OT goes through those executive functions as well. So I
Exactly.
mean, this
OT,
would be,
there's a
go
huge
ahead.
crossover, sorry, of the executive function skills, something both OT and speech can work on. And then when I think of like someone doing their ADLs or their morning routine, all of that, such an overlap with speech therapy of like, how can we modify based on their memory needs or how can we modify based on their attention? So I think OT and speech, all the disciplines, but we definitely need to collaborate very closely to make sure we're supporting the patient the best we can.
Cool. Anything else you want to add for today?
I not a whole lot more. I just wanted to mention that it starts in 2 weeks. So September,
Oh, yeah.
it's less than that. September 14th is when Reconnect starts. So again, if you guys know anyone that's listening that may benefit, just shoot me a message and I'd be happy to connect further.
Okay. That's awesome. Do you have a website also or not
I
yet?
do not yet.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
So it's through the Instagram and the email.
Exactly.
Sounds great. Kerri, thank you for joining us today and sharing your heart with our survivors. To our listeners, remember your story matters. Your recovery is worth fighting for, and you are never alone on this path. Catch the wave. That's warriors achieving victory every day. Thank you.
Thank you so much.